My parents' marriage seemed ideal to me. I never saw them quarrel when I was growing up, raising my brother and me, traveling, and retiring to their ideal home. By the river, they were partners in everything. They had everything. After that, everything fell apart in a night. The life they constructed for 38 years, my parents had been wed. They were best friends in addition to being husband and wife. My brother and I looked up to this pair, the kind that everyone envied. They purchased a stunning property by the river, replete with a boat, jet skis, and everything else they could possibly want, and retired to Arizona 3 years ago. They visited the West Coast and the Alps during the summer. They would come to Utah for weeks to see me and my family. To make their stay more pleasant, my husband even installed an RV hookup on our land. Everything appeared to be ideal, right up till last Thursday. The warning signs. I disregarded. I ought to have noticed the warning flags. The parts were all there when I looked back, but I didn't want to see them. It all began when my mother befriended Kathy. There was something about Kathy, a 64-year-old divorcee in their Arizona town, that always annoyed me. I didn't trust her since she was noisy, attention-seeking, and had a way of enticing people into her circle. However, my mother, she loved her. Mom used to say, "Jenny, you worry too much." Whenever I expressed my worries, "Kathy's harmless. She's got a heart of gold." I didn't purchase it, particularly when my mother, who seldom ever drank, began to go out more. It started out as a sporadic happy hour. Then all of a sudden, she started going out several evenings a week. The boat then arrived. Kathy purchased one and managed to enlist my dad's help in choosing it. I felt nervous just from that, but I chose to dismiss it. Then my father called me one evening. He remarked, "Your mom just called. She's staying out later than planned. Apparently, they met a friend of Kathy's and are going to some guy's house by the river for a bit." I felt sick to my stomach. I said, "Who's this guy?" He answered, "No idea, Dad. But don't worry, it's probably nothing." It wasn't anything, though. The end was just getting started. The night everything disintegrated, Mom went out once again that Thursday. She promised to get home by 9 o'clock. By 8:30, Dad and Nancy's husband, another of Mom's new drinking friends, were working on his car. Mom called Dad at 8:45. "Hey, honey," she said in a light, informal tone. "Kathy and Nancy want to stay out longer, but I'm ready to come home. Can you pick me up?" Dad didn't give it much thought. After getting his keys, he drove over to the pub. He arrived to see Mom waiting by herself. Nancy and Kathy remained indoors, drinking, joking, and acting as if nothing had happened. The ride home was calm, according to Dad. She seemed fine, he subsequently informed me. I did most of the talking. She just listened. But there was a problem. She was aloof, distracted, as if she had anything to conceal. My dad was the first to enter the house when they arrived. Then there was a thud, a sound behind him. When he turned back, he found Mom sobbing on her knees while holding his legs. He initially believed she was intoxicated or teasing. Then he saw that she was trembling. She blurted out, "Jack," in between sobs, "I cheated on you." Dad stopped. "What?" Her voice broke as she muttered, "I cheated on you once more. I never meant to hurt you. I'm so sorry." Quiet. As he stood there, his face expressionless, Dad tried to take in what she had just said. In a single night, everything they had created had been ruined by this lady, the woman he had loved for 40 years. "No," he shook his head and muttered, "No, this isn't real." However, it was. Furthermore, nothing would ever be the same. The quiet before the storm. He didn't shout, didn't ask for clarification. After a lengthy minute of staring at her, he finally said something. "Go take a shower," he stated in a remarkably composed tone. "We'll talk in the morning." Mom pleaded with him to stay and speak immediately. Sobbing, Please, Jack, she said. Don't leave me. I'm so sorry. Please no, he interrupted her in a chilly tone. We need time to process this. He turned and went to bed after that. Mom paced outside their bedroom all night long, whispering through the door and gently pounding. Jack, please, just talk to me. He said the same thing to her each time. Go to sleep, Donna. We'll talk in the morning. She eventually fell into bed around 3 in the morning. And at 6 in the morning, Dad had left. The flight mom was exhausted and sleepy when she woke up at 8 a.m. She turned over and grabbed Dad, but there was nobody on his side of the bed. Then she rose, went to the window, and I noticed that the driveway was empty of his camper. Her heart ceased beating. Reaching for her phone, she dialed his number. No response. She made another call. Nothing. Finally, a text message arrived. We are officially separated. What was going through her head at the time is beyond me to imagine. Fear. Incredulity. I'm sorry. Over and over, she called. Dad finally picked up after several missed calls. I'm divorcing you. Mom broke. She pleaded. She cried. She begged for another opportunity. However, Dad, he was finished. You'll hear from my attorney once I've hired one. Click. The line died. And, just like that, the marriage of 40 years was over. The repercussions start. Mom was unwilling to let go. Not quite yet. She began to pursue him, searching for him, trying to find him, driving from campsite to campsite. I was dubbed frantic by her. Jenny, where's your father? Have you seen him? I need to find him. However, I was aware of the reality. I was aware of his location. I also had no intention of telling her, for the first time in his life, because at last, Dad was prioritizing himself. What about Mom? She was going to come to terms with how much she had messed up. Mom believed she could resolve this. She believed that if she pleaded for a long enough time, wept a lot, or followed Dad around like a desperate, heartbroken adolescent, he would simply return. For her, it had always been that way. However, this time, she had not realized how much harm she had caused, because Dad wasn't merely upset. He wasn't merely injured. He had left. The hunt starts. Mom lost her mind. She went into complete meltdown mode as soon as she realized Dad had left. She skipped meals, didn't get any rest. She kept phoning his phone and leaving voicemail after voicemail while she roamed the house. Jack, please pick up. We need to talk. I love you. Please don't do this. No response. Then she began searching for him via car. She knew Dad wasn't far away, but he had stolen the camper. She visited all of his favorite locations, including the parks, lakes, and campgrounds where he enjoyed sitting and fishing. She questioned people wherever she went. Have you seen my husband? Silver camper? White truck? On the third day, she eventually located him. He's cornered like a lost animal. About an hour away, he had pitched his tent at an RV park. She slammed into the parking lot, parked just beside him, and leaped out of the vehicle. He was gazing out at the lake while sipping coffee in a lawn chair. Be calm, not bothered, as if his whole world hadn't suddenly fallen apart. Mom? She was completely the opposite. She had untidy hair. She had puffy eyes. She appeared to have gone days without sleep. Jack, please, she said, bending down beside him. Just talk to me. He didn't even give her a glance. There's nothing left to say. She seized his arm while aggressively shaking her head. No, don't say that. I love you. I made a mistake. But we can fix this. At last, Dad turned to face her, his expression unreadable. He repeated, a mistake? A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. A mistake is taking the wrong exit on the freeway. What did you do? He was shaking his head. That was a choice. She cried more intensely. I didn't mean for it to happen, he yelled. But it did, in a chilly tone. Mom winced. he went on, his voice lower now. I don't even know who you are anymore, Donna. You were my world, my partner. I trusted you with everything, and you threw it away for what? A cheap thrill? A night of drinking and bad decisions? She shook her head, breathing heavily from her tears. Whispering, I love you, she said. Dad simply ran a hand through his hair and sighed. You don't love me, Donna, he said. You love the idea of me. You love what I gave you. But real love? It doesn't do this. It doesn't destroy people like this. He got up when Mom reached for him again. Go home, was all he said. She pleaded. No, Jack, please. We can get through this. All he did was shake his head. I already have. After that, he locked the door behind him and turned to enter his camper. What about Mom? For the first time in her life, she realized that weeping would not solve this situation, so she sat on the ground and sobbed into her hands. The attempt at damage control Mom changed her strategy when she eventually returned home. Maybe damage control would be more effective than pleading. She began phoning me. A great deal. It was just guilt tripping at the start. Jenny, he won't even look at me. He won't talk to me. I don't know what to do. I said cautiously, Mom, perhaps you should give him space. No. If I give him space, he'll leave for good. She then began to alter history. It wasn't really cheating, she said one evening. It was just a stupid moment. Just kissing. Just touching. Nothing serious. I tightened my jaw, reminding her, You told Dad you cheated. She fell silent. Then she gave a smile. I thought that's what he wanted to hear, but it wasn't really like that. So you lied? She paused, whispering, I don't know, she said, and I came to a realization at that very instant. She wasn't merely attempting to make her marriage better. She was attempting to play the victim, and I refused to let her. Her screaming was louder than her father's silence. Weeks passed. Dad refused to return home. The majority of Mom's calls were unanswered by him. His response was succinct and direct. I'll send the divorce papers when I'm ready. That was it. Avoid fights. Don't shout. Don't be theatrical. Nothing but quiet. And that? More than anything else, that broke Mom. She desired a response, a battle, something to demonstrate his continued concern. However, Dad? He was already on his way. Mom's final, hopeless deed. Mom did the unimaginable when twisting the truth and guilt-tripping failed. She attempted to make me oppose him. Jenny, your father is abandoning me. No, Mom. You abandoned him the moment you cheated. It wasn't cheating. Then why did you admit to it? Quiet. Then she finally lost it. You're just like him. I gave a sour laugh. Thank God for that. And that? That was our final conversation. I wasn't picking sides. That's the reality. I was already lost to her. The repercussions. Dad filed for divorce. Mom tried to claw at whatever part of him she could still control, pull it out, and prolong it. He didn't move, though. When were the documents signed? When did the judge declare their marriage to be over? She cracked, because she had to deal with the repercussions of her choices for the first time in her life. What about Dad? At last he was free. When her loneliness started, I wish I could say that this taught Mom a lesson, that she improved as a person. However, what is the reality? She simply became more alone. Kathy and Nancy vanished. As it happens, they were only drinking companions rather than true pals. And after all was over, and she had no one left to divert her attention from the mess she had made, she was forced to sit by herself. And that, of all the punishments, that was the worst. When I last saw her, it was an accident. I saw her at a diner while I was visiting a friend. She was sitting by herself in a booth, stirring a cup of coffee, as if she had nowhere else to go. She raised her head. We looked at each other, and I briefly caught a glimpse of it. I'm sorry. However, I simply turned around, grinned, and left. Since I was no longer her safety net, she had decided. And now, she was forced to accept it by themselves. All her life, Mom had felt she was above reproach. She believed that others would just comply with her lies, manipulations, and rewritings of the truth. She believed that she could be unfaithful to her father, ask for forgiveness, and cry her way out of it. And he would forgive her. She believed that I would support her if she played the victim, fabricated the story, and made herself the injured person. However, this time, it didn't work. And when did she discover that at last? She began to unravel. The truth about being by yourself, Mom, lost everything when the divorce was finalized. Not legally, she still owned the house, the car, and money. But in all the ways that were important, she had nothing. Dad had left. Her friends, the moment the drama subsided, they disappeared. Nancy, Kathy, and all those alcoholic friends she had exchanged her marriage for, they weren't authentic. She was unimportant to them. Having someone to drink with was important to them. And now that Mom was no longer fun, no longer out having fun, laughing, and acting as though everything was fine, they went on, and she had no one left. The final effort to gain control. She made one final attempt to draw me back in. Months had passed since I broke off communication. Suddenly, a text message appeared on my phone. Mama, I know you're mad at me, Jenny, but I need to see you, please. I choose to disregard it. The following day, a voicemail. Jenny, I just want to talk. I miss you. I didn't respond. Then, after 2 days, she arrived at my home. The expression of remorse, she was standing there, appearing elderly, as I opened the door, not only in terms of physicality, on an emotional level. It was as if the burden of everything she had done had finally fallen upon her. She smiled weakly at me. Hi, sweetheart. I folded my arms. What do you want, Mom? Her smile wavered. Can we just talk? She wasn't invited in. I didn't even move out of the way. I simply waited while standing there. She let out a final sigh. I miss you. I remained silent. She shifted on her feet and swallowed hard. I know I screwed up. I remained silent. For this reason, she did this every time. Dropped the apologies and hoped for immediate pardon. This time, though, I wasn't going to fall for it. The stillness was finally broken by her. She said, "You really hate me, don't you?" I inhaled deeply. "No," I replied. "I just don't need you anymore." Her face fell apart. And that, she finally understood at that point. I wasn't angry. I didn't harbor resentment. I simply stopped caring. She started to say anything else, but I had finished. "Take care, Mom." In her face, I closed the door. The last farewell, the first, never saw her again after that. She still made an effort, sending voicemails on my birthday and texting me on holidays. However, I never answered, as she had already made up her mind, and now she was forced to accept it by themselves. The future that she will never experience. Years went by. Dad moved on. He began to travel, meet new people, and establish a life apart from her. Me, I prospered. I created a family, a house, and a future she would never experience. What about Mom? She dwindled. Just another lonely woman, dealing with the results of her own actions in a silent house. Not a family. No affection. There is no one left to control. Simply say, "You're sorry." What's the best part? She never crossed my mind again. In the past, Mom was the center of attention, the family center, the one who kept things together and established the rules. Right now, she drowned in the solitude she produced. Just another lonely woman in an empty house. And there was nobody coming to her aid. The home that seemed to be a cemetery. After the divorce, Mom remained in the house. She had the option to sell everything, relocate, and start over, but she chose not to. As though preserving the house meant preserving some aspect of her former existence. She clung to it like a lifeline. However, the house was no longer a home. It was a cemetery, a place haunted by ghosts of the past. Still in the corner is Dad's chair. His tools are in the garage, undisturbed, pictures of their shared life, collecting dust on the walls. When Dad was off fishing or camping, Mom would be whining about how quiet the home was. All she had left now was that silence. She was being crushed by it. The companions who were never Mom believed Nancy and Kathy would support her after the divorce. Isn't that what friends are meant to do? However, they vanished as soon as the drama ended. No more invitations, no more text messages. Donna, no more going out for drinks. The problem with drinking pals is that they only show up when the party is still going on. And once Mom ceased to be entertaining, was she once merely a depressed, damaged woman without a spouse or a purpose? They were no longer concerned. She had exchanged a fleeting delight for her true life. And at the end, she was left with nothing. The final hurried step. A year went by. Mom sent me pointless SMSs and made a couple of feeble attempts to get me to come back in. Thinking about you today, Jenny. Hope you're doing well. Remove. I miss you, sweetheart. Ignore. She even wrote a letter by hand. I refrained from opening it, as I was already aware of what it would say. I apologize. I didn't mean to offend you. Can we have a conversation? However, I was at a loss for words. She made up her mind. I also made mine. When I last heard about her, I never made contact. I never checked in. Jane would occasionally email me updates, though. Mom's still in the house. She doesn't really go out anymore. She talks about you a lot. I never answered. Therefore, the first didn't have to. Mom was no longer a part of my life. I wasn't a member of hers either. The future that she will never experience without her. My life continued on. I married, had children, created a family based on honesty, love, and trust, something solid and true, all that Mom tossed aside. And she, that residence was where she stayed, aging, sitting by themselves, relying solely on her own errors to keep her company. I'll never think about her again. I no longer give her much thought. But occasionally, when I see my children and the life I created, I realize Mom lost more than simply Dad. She lost everything. And that, her true punishment was that. Because of the most excruciating pain, it's not rage, it's not treachery. People are forgetting it. And she turned into just that. A memory no one clung to. A warning about what not to do. Not much more. Nothing less. You can recover from some betrayals. With time, some wounds heal. However, what did Mom do? That was irrevocable. The most depressing aspect? At last, she realized that. However, it was much too late. The way life proceeded without her mom waited for Dad's return for years. She continued to hold out hope that he would alter his mind even after the divorce was finalized, after he began traveling, and even after he had established a completely new life without her. However, he never did, since he was content without her. And me? I had created something lovely. A life full of genuine joy, family, and love. A life without her in it. She might have been involved. She might have attended my wedding, been a grandma to my children, or been the person I turned to for guidance. But for a night of drinking and poor choices, she tossed all of that away. And now, she was forced to accept it by themselves. The last chance for redemption, Jane, was the last person she contacted. It had been years since I had spoken to her. Then one day, I received a note from Jane. Mom wants to see you. I spent a lot of time looking at the text. I typed back after that. Why? Jane paused, then answered. She's not doing well. She knows she messed up. She just wants to talk before it's too late. I let out a slow breath. I then provided my concluding response. No, that was the end of it. My final statement regarding her. Due to various errors, there are no second chances for them. When I last heard her name, Jane texted me once again a few months later. Mom passed away. The message was read by me. Do you know how I felt too? Nothing. No rage, not depressed. No respite, nothing at all. The funeral was not attended by me. Didn't want specifics. Didn't require resolution. Because she was someone I had long since let go of. And now? I didn't want to go back and look at her since she was just another aspect of my history. The concluding remark, the first, no longer give her much thought. She simply vanished. But occasionally, when I'm with my family and I see the love I have, the trust we've developed, and the joy I've battled for, something strikes me. Mom didn't ruin me. She set me free. Because right now, she never had the strength to create the life I have. And that's how her narrative truly ends. Not a tragedy, not atonement, simply irrelevant.